Unbound 200 bike check. This is my 2023 Trek Checkpoint SLR. Same frame I ran last year. I ran one size bigger last year and I never could get the fit right, so I went down a size. Custom painted my Shox Rudy Explorer fork. This is the one with the lockout, so it's a little flick here, which is kind of handy. Don't really use it for gravel. It's mostly when I ride it on the road, I'll flick it over, or if I got a long paved climb. Pretty much it just stays open all the time. It's only about 25 millimeters of active travel, and it's very heavily damped, so it really doesn't move a lot. It's more just to kind of reduce the paint shaker when you're coming down bumpy descents. I'm running Terra Speed 45s on this. These are about, I think, 36 or 37 millimeters on these wheels. These are Light Bicycle Falcon Pro wheels, CX Ray spokes, and DT 240 hubs. These are about 25 mil internal width, and I could actually go to a 30 mil internal width. I think it actually would work better here. I've got plenty of room for bigger tires here. Something you might notice that I've done, and kids don't try this at home, is I actually drilled a hole in the steer tube of the fork. So I've got my front brake hose running down through the headset and into the steer tube, and then it comes out under the crown here and is zip tied into here. And for those of you zip tied here, let's see if I can get this around this side here. You can see how it's routed there. And for those of you who think that might be an issue, I've run lots of gravel races, been running this fork for a couple years now. Never had an issue with it. Works just fine. 160 millimeter rotor, a bit overkill, but it's nice on the really fast gravel descents like Crusher and the Tusher and stuff like that. Cages, I'm running the Arendelle Bando cages. These, you will never kick a bottle out. They're not the lightest cages, but sucks losing a bottle, and you will absolutely not lose a bottle with these cages. They're super burly. Two of these, and I run a 30-ounce Zeffel bottle, so it's this really big, tall bottle, so it's got a lot of leverage moving back and forth. So it's important to have sturdy cages. The Design pump, let's see, what model is that one? I don't actually even know. It's one of the bigger pumps. It's the kind that has a little hose that you attach on. This pump always works, and I can get a lot of air in the tires quickly. And I'm not, for the gravel bike, I'm not about the lightweight. You know, it's more about making sure that it works, because when you're out in the middle of nowhere, it's important that your pump actually works, and you're not trying to save a few grams by putting some cheesy little pump that's not actually going to fill your tires. The Checkpoint, like a lot of new bikes now, has a little storage cubby here. There's that right there is the little Trek tool. It looks a little rusty, but it actually works. I make sure that it's actually lubed and adjusted so that it works properly, but I can access my multi-tool there really quick. I've got two Tubolitos there, and right now there's no I don't think, yeah, there's two Tubolitos stuffed up in here, and normally I put an extra Dynaplug, a dual-headed Dynaplug that's stuffed up in there, so I have actually 8 plugs on the bike when I'm racing. And then up in here I've got another Tubolito, and I have two 25-gram CO2s and tire levers and a few other bits and baubles. So this is pretty compact and doesn't make any noise or anything when I'm riding. So I can handle, you know, any kind of flats. Silca Sealant cranks. These are GRX cranks. And I'm kind of funny on that. I would like to run a carbon crank, but I haven't found a power meter that I like. I tried the NG Eco power meter from Power to Max, and I had problems with it, and they wouldn't warranty it, so I just basically threw it in the trash and went back to a GRX with the 4i. These are 4630 Rotor Q-Rings, and in the back I've got an 1142 Shimano 11-speed cassette. So that is definitely mullet. This is supposed to only handle, I think, a 36 cassette, but it handles the 42 just fine, shifts perfectly. I can actually cross chain with it, and when I'm running small here, I still have chain tension, so shifts beautifully. And I have it run semi-synchro, so when I shift here, it does two shifts in the back automatically, so that my cadence stays pretty constant. GRX clutch derailleur, 140 rear rotor, and I'm using actually Dura Ace calipers. which are a bit lighter than the GRX calipers. And then for shifters, same thing. I'm running Dura Ace shifters. While I like the GRX shifters, I don't like that they flare out a little bit and they kind of stick out past the bars, which doesn't really suit me. So I run kind of a narrow setup. You see I got my levers turned in a little bit here. Apidura top tube bag. There's a ton of good top tube bags. This is good for basically in here I keep gels and my phone in here, because in my pockets I want to keep my pockets empty. The way I do my feeds at Unbound, I have 2 tall bottles on the bike, 2 30-ounce bottles on the bike, and a 2-liter oozeway on my back. When I get to the first aid, my bladder, I have a second bladder that's already full for the oozeway and 2 filled bottles. So I'm not filling bottles. I take these out, I throw them in the bag, put the 2 filled bottles in, swap the bladder. It's got a little quick release. It's like 30 seconds and I'm in and out of the first aid station. When I get to the second aid station, that last stint is a little shorter, so I swap 2, again, pre-filled bottles, and I take my oozeway completely off my body and just throw it in the pack. So it's really, really fast. But that's how I do my my hydration, and all my fuel is basically liquid fuel in the oozeway and the bottles. And this is just gels. I take around 12 gels, about 10 regular gels and 2 caffeinated gels for late in the race. I take those at about 5-hour intervals. And I have a little bit of solid food I'll have in my pockets, but I basically never eat it. It's always just straight liquid. That's what works for my gut. I'm using Silca Sealant in the tires. This is a S-Works mirror saddle. Don't skimp on saddles. Saddles are a huge deal. I'm running a 42 millimeter carbon bar, and it's like an ergo road bend, not a flared bend. And for the aero bars, these are just some old profile designs, kind of standard aero bars. They're carbon, and I have shifters here, and I'm a 2x, so I have the old school 2-button front derailleur control here and rear derailleur control here, so I can shift on here while I'm on here. And this position is much higher than my TT bike. I didn't roll my TT bike out here, but on my TT bike, these things are like way lower. Everything's much, much lower on the TT bike. So this is not about having the most aerodynamic position. It's about comfort. It's all about comfort. This here saves your neck, saves your back, saves your arms. My arms usually give out late in the race, and I start having arm problems. We're just holding myself up on the hoods. So this really saves a ton of energy. Plus, it's about 2 miles an hour faster, so it's free speed, and the amateurs still get to run aero bars. Obviously, you don't want to use these when you're in a pack because you can't reach the brake, so that's not a good idea. But usually after the first hour and a half or so, you're out of the big pack. And what I find is that if I'm riding along and I'm by myself and I catch a pack, let's say 2 or 3 hours in, and it's 3 or 4 riders, and I ride past them going a little faster, they're not going to say, oh, that guy's on aero bars, I'm not going to jump on his wheel. You bet they jump on my wheel every time. They're not afraid of some guy who's on aero bars. And there's plenty of people who are on aero bars. And those of you who might criticize the whole aero bars and gravel, it's silly. I've done thousands of miles of gravel racing and training. I've never once seen a crash caused by aero bars, or even heard of a crash caused by aero bars, but I've seen tons of crashes caused by people who were on the hoods and in the drops and were just riding too fast and kind of ran out of talent. So yeah, if it bothers you, don't race gravel. So the Checkpoint has a pivot in here which allows this to flex a little more. This setup here is actually pretty stiff, but this part of the seat tube actually flexes, so it's a little bit like having a soft seat post. I think a soft seat post would actually be a better solution, but I like the front end geometry on this bike, so that's why I got it. And plus I was able to get the custom paint, this radioactive orange paint that I like so much. I'm running, these are 175 cranks, and frankly they're a little too long. I'm going to go down to 172.5 cranks. Pedals, these are the Crank Brothers egg beater, or actually, I forget what these are called, candy ties. It's the tie spindle versions. These are very light. I've had these for probably 15 years and rebuilt them about 50 times, but they work. They're very light, and these you can get in and out of these when you're completely covered in mud. Another little trick for those of you who race any kind of gravel races in mud, you can spray different things on your bike to basically keep the mud off. There's this stuff called I can't remember the name of it now. Anyway, there's stuff they sell for motorcycles to spray on your plastic to keep the mud from sticking, and you can spray that basically all over everything. Just make sure it doesn't hit your rotors, obviously, that's a bad thing, but you spray it on absolutely everything else, and it helps to keep the mud from sticking. And then bring a big paint stick so you can get the mud out if you have to. But the best strategy for avoiding mud, if you have it in a gravel race, is just to not let your tires touch the mud. You lose less time getting off and walking and carrying your bike than you do cleaning your bike after it's caked in mud. So if you think your bike's going to get caked in mud, just don't let your tires touch it. The big thing is keeping your drivetrain clean, because when your drivetrain is caked in mud, you're losing like 20 or 30 watts. And if you go over, say, a 10-hour gravel race where you're losing 30 watts, you're losing like a half-hour time just because your drivetrain is all janked up. So keeping your drivetrain clean is critical. That's one of the reasons I do wax, and I carry in here a little tube of wax. Now for my training rides, it's in here. When I at Unbound, I pull the little squeeze tube of extra wax, and I put it in here so I can access it really quickly. So usually 2 or 3 times during the race, and if I hear any kind of noise from the chain will all still be clean. It won't be covered in mud. It'll just start to be a little dry because it's of all the street creek crossings. I can just stop and do a few quick spins of lube on it and get the chain back up to snuff, so it's still back into that 95% efficiency range. What else? For setting up your aero bars, if you decide you're going to do aero bars, don't focus on getting them in the most aerodynamic position, because that's not what's critical. What's important is that you have control. So set these a little further apart so your elbows are a little further apart. Don't set these too narrow. Set these up high so that your eye line is nice and high. If you have them really low, all the wind is basically hitting your chest. So you want to have these as high as you can get them. But if you get them too high, your elbows tend to slide off, and you'll kind of your arms will be sliding down, and your arms will get tired of because you're kind of falling down the hill here. So set them where it's a nice natural angle and you can relax. You should be able to ride with your palms open like this and not use any muscle tension. If you can ride with your palms open and you're not using any muscle tension to hold yourself on the bike, you've got it set up right. But if you find yourself sliding this way or sliding that way or bouncing around, or having to really grip this tight to hold your position, then it's wrong, because your muscles will give out late in the race. It should be a very, very relaxed position. I have, let's see, well, it's a bundle of Snakes cables up in here for all my Di2 cables, Garmin 1040. This is solar powered. This battery will last like 24 hours. Those of you who've been racing gravel for a while probably remember computers from 5 or 10 years ago that wouldn't last 10 hours. You'd have to like change all the settings and stuff to try to get it to cheat 10 hours out of it. Now these things will go 24 hours, no problem. I still make sure it's fully charged, and the solar power helps to keep it topped off to make sure I have plenty of battery. That's about it. I'll do a post-race report. This is basically the same setup I ran last year. Pretty similar. I mean, a few little changes, but it's pretty much the same setup I ran last year, and I won my age group. So hopefully, I'm hoping to repeat that and win my age group again. And I'll do a post-race report in about 10 days. We'll see you in Kansas.